Given the last 4 or 5 years, most people who follow real estate have probably forgotten that up until about 2012, the weakest or one of the weakest economies in Australia was New South Wales, and one of the great underachieving property markets was Sydney. But obviously things have been different in the last 4 or 5 years, with New South Wales established as the #1 economy in the country by a considerable margin, and Sydney having a boom property market until very recently. And the point is that things change. And one of the other things that's changing, and that I don't think most people have caught up with, is that South Australia is one of the rising economies in Australia, and that Adelaide is one of the most underrated property markets. So I mentioned this in the context of the new edition that we've just published of Top 5 Adelaide Hotspots. And I often find that one of the hardest sells of all the markets I talk about and all the products that we publish is trying to convince people that Adelaide and South Australia are worth considering, because South Australia as an economy has a reputation long-term of being an economy that lacks growth, a state that doesn't have very strong population growth, and that Adelaide is a property market that doesn't deliver as much growth as you might get in, say, Sydney or Melbourne. These things are not necessarily true, and certainly these things are changing. We recently had a report from Deloitte Access Economics, which predicted that this year South Australia is going to lead Australia on economic growth. Now, it's just one of many reports that have come out recently. ComSec's another one with their quarterly State of the State reports, which have given a much higher ranking than we normally see for the South Australian economy. This economy is really coming very strong. It's producing growth, much greater than we've seen. Business confidence there is strong, jobs are being created, and the overall prospects are much, much stronger for that economy. And on the back of that, we're seeing a very active Adelaide property market. It has more suburbs with growth trajectories, according to our research, than most of the other capital cities of Australia. One of the things that is attractive about the Adelaide property market is its relative affordability. It's a great value for money market, particularly compared to Sydney and Melbourne. It's a market with low vacancies. It's a market with pretty good rental yields. And there are certain precincts which are doing a whole lot better. One of the problems, of course, is that media likes to publish single-digit generalised data to describe growth in the capital city. One figure describing how much price growth we've seen in a market like Brisbane or Sydney or Adelaide, and those generalised figures for Adelaide generally talk about annual growth of perhaps 4 or 5%. But of course, behind that figure, there are individual precincts and individual suburbs that are doing a lot better than that. There are many suburbs in Adelaide that have had double-digit growth in their median prices in the last 12 months, and some have done better than 20%. It very much depends on the location and the particular dynamics of that market. So the generalised figures are quite irrelevant and misleading, and disguise the fact that within that overall Adelaide metropolitan area, there are growth markets to be found. So the Top 5 Adelaide Hotspots report highlights the 5 precincts that we think are the best for ongoing growth. An example of that, a new entry in our report, and one that's well worth considering, is the local government area described as Port Adelaide Enfield. Now, this is economically a very, very important part of the Adelaide metropolitan market, because it includes the areas where all the very major naval vessel building contracts are taking place, contracts that are measured in the tens of billions of dollars, some of them underway, more to come in the future, submarines and all sorts of other Navy vessels. The greatest concentration of work will be happening in that Port Adelaide area, creating many, many thousands of jobs. And in addition to that, we have a situation where 500 public servants are being relocated up to that area as well. So lots of jobs coming into that market, and out of jobs comes demand for real estate. Good level of affordability there. It's kind of more a middle market area, I suppose, in Adelaide terms, but in terms of the pricing compared to what you pay in Sydney and Melbourne, it appears to be at the bottom of the market. But it really is some good middle market suburbs, good transport links, lots of jobs coming to that market. So that location is certainly starting to pump up, and there are many suburbs in that particular municipality where sales trajectory is rising steadily over the last 6 to 12 months, which is likely to lead to superior price growth. So for all sorts of reasons, we think that Adelaide is an underrated market and one that investors should be giving more consideration to. So check it out, top 5 Adelaide Hotspots, lots of places there that we think are going to show good growth in the near term, even as markets in our biggest cities, Sydney and Melbourne, are winding down. We don't have one market in Australia. They're not all moving in the same direction at the same speed. And one of those that is moving a little bit counter-cyclically to what's happening in the 2 biggest cities is Adelaide. So we recommend that you give it some consideration. That's it for now. Terry Ryder from Hotspotty signing off. We'll talk to you again soon.